Happy Monday, everybody, and it is a joyous Monday, if I do say so myself. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here for another edition of Ask Mike. And before we get started, because I cannot wait to talk about some of the questions that we have today, don't forget to like and subscribe to us if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're watching us on knwa.com, you're doing the right thing. Please watch us on knwa.com. That helps us more than watching us on YouTube. But if you are on YouTube, please like and subscribe to this video. Mike, I'm just so excited to get into this because the majority of questions this week are about none other than that impressive Kentucky win. Our question is from Mousetown, who asks, were you as surprised by Arkansas's win over Kentucky as I was? I still can't believe it. How did it happen?
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought they'd lose by 15 or so. I think there are a few Razorback fans that are now claiming they believed all along they were going to win. I mean, you'd have to prove that to me. You can't come after it and say, I knew they'd win all along. I think most fans thought they would lose. And I think almost everybody in the media thought they would lose, except for one guy, Grant Hall.
Oh, okay.
He's the one guy in the media that's covered the Hogs longer than I have, and he's been doing it for 55 years. I mean, he'd already been doing it 5 years when I got here. And this guy kind of goes on field. And he explained how it was going to happen before the game started. He said, these Kentucky fans are going to cause their own team to lose. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, I knew it would be loud. I knew there would be certain things going on. But this was weird. I mean, Jimmy Dykes, who coached at Kentucky, who lived in Lexington, who's been there many times as an ESPN analyst, he said before the game ever started that it was the strangest atmosphere he'd ever seen.
It was. Many Kentucky media members said that to myself and Jacob, who were at the game. They said, we have never seen anything like this.
And why? I mean, what you're basically doing on this, if you just look at this game, you've got a team that just had a huge win on the road against one of the best teams in the country, Tennessee. They're just outside the top 10. In some of these metrics, they're better than that. And they have every reason to be happy, and Arkansas stinks. They're 1-6. And you're mad at this guy that you wanted him gone, and you were mad at the AD who said he wasn't going to fire him because they didn't have the money to buy him out. And then Cal went, you don't have to buy me out, I'm leaving. And he leaves them all that money on the table, and he goes to Arkansas, and he never complains, never says one thing bad about them. And they're just following him around everywhere. I mean, Razorback fans, it would be like you're in your house having a discussion with some of your friends and a guy busts through the door and he's a Kentucky fan. He's like, I'm trying to do you a favor. This guy stinks. You'll find out. And they're like, what? What are you doing? And I knew all that was going on, but I didn't think it would carry over into this game because the game just didn't mean that much. I mean, they were going to win this thing easily.
To Kentucky fans, it meant a whole lot.
And then I see this game start, and I see them start booing these players. And then I'm thinking, okay, they're playing really well right now, but it won't last. And it did last. And they're making shots, and they're not screwing up. And they don't have these long lags where they get outscored 12-0. And I'm going, well, wow, they're really motivated. And then by the second half, midway through, I'm thinking, do these Kentucky fans understand they're actually inflating Arkansas? They're playing way better than they've ever played. Some people actually tried to tell me that wasn't their best game of the year. I'm going, name one where they played better than this.
What?
It was just unbelievable. And it was caused by all this stuff that was coming out of the stands. So, I don't know. You got what you deserved. I don't know what you thought this was. I can understand you showing up and cheering and, being behind your team and all that. But if you had treated it like you were playing the number 15th place team in the SEC, you'd have won it. And I was sitting there looking at Mark Pope toward the end of that game and even in his press conference and their players, and they can't afford to say this, but I know they were sitting there going, I wish our fans would shut up.
Yeah.
They're hurting us.
Yeah.
And then Kentucky just came unglued in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game. They just came unglued.
You know when I kind of felt like Grant Hall was right, Because I had felt the same thing. You look at Vegas and you see Kentucky as 10-point favorites and you go, this one's just going to be terrible. But when I started to feel that Grant, his theory might be right, was when the players started walking on the court And they just had these little grins on their faces. They
did a great-
loved them booing them. They were going, bring it on. Boo us some more, please. Then Coach Cal walks out of the tunnel, and he does his little expression. He had that little smirk on his face as well. And I went, oh, no. This could really go Arkansas's favor. I think you're exactly right. Sometimes your mentality, and it's all about, okay, the world's against us. You are all against us. And that makes you show up and show out.
It just was different than a game where we're number 3, you're number 2, we don't like you, and so we're mad at you. I've seen many games like that. This wasn't this was different. This was hate-filled.
Yes.
They were hating on Arkansas, hating on those ex-Kentucky players. And it just backfired on them. That's all and then it was weird after the game because then all these fans got on social media and started attacking Mark Pope.
Oh, yeah, there was a lot of
this is a guy who was a hero 2 days earlier because earlier in the week, they had knocked off Tennessee at Tennessee and just were amazing. And all of a sudden, like this one guy posted, he wasn't even a good player for us. We need to get him out of here. I'm thinking, whoa, this is loony.
They are pretty loony, and we're going to find out in some more questions how loony they are. Hammerhead28 says, give credit where credit is due. Or sorry, Razor Alex 88 says, I skipped a question, I apologize. Ever since last March, UK poured on the taunts and gave Razorback Nation so much grief. I am dying laughing that they spent all day outside the Rupp to fill it up and then go home disappointed. It's so hard to be humble with Big Suey.
And he is a supporter, and there are a lot of Razorbacks that even though they were upset with what was going on, they didn't go overboard. They might have been somewhat critical. But those people, I'm telling you right now, if you're one of those fans, yeah, laugh it up today and tomorrow, and then kind of change your mindset on Wednesday because they got to go to Austin.
Yeah.
And then it's a whole different ball game. They got to figure out a way to keep what they had and keep it going. But yeah, enjoy this. You deserve it. You stuck by these guys. You might have been a little bit critical, but you weren't nutty. There's a segment of the fan base, however, the ones that said the Kentucky fans were right about Cal, and the ones that said these players didn't care. They just wanted the money. You know what those fans were doing after the game? They were still saying that.
Yeah.
They were saying stuff like, wow, big deal. You won a game. Okay, we've won 2 games now. I want more than that. Don't try to tell me that this is a big deal because, you should have been playing this way all along. So there are that small segment of Arkansas's fan base, they're like Kentucky fans. We talked about the transfer portal. Could we transfer them? Could they hit the portal and go become Kentucky fans?
I also
they'd have a lot of friends there.
They do. But also there are some people that said, look, before this game, because you can go back on our social media and check it out, there were a lot of Hog fans that were saying, look, if you don't win another game this year, but if you win this game, we're all gonna be happy about it. I hope you keep that same energy, right? Because
so those that felt that way, yeah, enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
You deserve it.
And I think you absolutely can bask in the glory and be happy about it. Just go and have fun.
I just feel bad for those people that are still mad enough not to get excited about this because it seems like to me no matter what you do, they're going to stay mad. They're just going to assume they're not going to be any good against Texas. It's going to go back to the same thing, so I'm just going to sit here.
Well, you can sit in that negative mindset, or you can enjoy that your team won a very huge game.
I talked to a guy earlier today, and he said, I don't care if they don't win another game. I'll remember this win for a long time.
Absolutely. It is hard to go into Rupp Arena and do what those guys did, especially against a Kentucky team that has been playing well, was coming off a great win over Tennessee. Yeah. I mean, it is – I was there. That atmosphere was crazy. Mm-hmm. And so to go and do what they did deserves some credit. Hammerhead28 says, give credit where credit is due, like I just said there. That was a great game by Arkansas. My concern, though, is DJ Wagner. If he were to get into foul trouble, who would take over the point? Please don't tell me Nelly. He scares me every time he dribbles.
Well, he played 38 minutes. So,
DJ Wagner.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at least for now, you don't have to worry about that because he's almost out there the whole game.
Yeah.
But Nelly Davis is the point guard if he's not there.
Well, let's go by what they said. I think it was Chin Coleman who said it. And when Boogie went down, who's going to play the point? Well, we're going to go to DJ because he's most comfortable there and he played at Kentucky. But Nelly's going to get a little bit of action there, and even Billy Richmond, which I kind of was shocked about, but he apparently played that in high school
Nelly played
too.
38 minutes too.
Yeah.
And here's what I would say about that. Yes, in all of these games since this happened, he's looked a little shaky, but look, this is only his third game of playing a lot after this thing with Boogie Flan happened. I mean, this was the big transition. He was going to play more, and it's helped him. He's now scored 18 points in 2 straight games. That's good. Yes, he's looked a little weird ball handling, and he gets under the basket and does some crazy things with the ball and is trying to throw it to Jonas Adu, and he throws a whack-a-mole pass, and the next thing you know, it's a turnover. But he's getting better at it. That's what I see. And my view on this is what's going on is that when he was at Florida Atlantic, he didn't play against these kind of defenses. They weren't this good. And so he's adjusting, and I think he just needs to concentrate more. He's a little too careless at times. But if he concentrates a little more, realizes you can't get away with that and playing in an SEC game, he'll be fine. I think he'll continue to get better.
But I also like how he's playing now with the absence of Boogie Flan. To talk about comfortability and all of that, he wasn't a guy at FAU that just stood on the perimeter shooting threes.
Yeah.
He didn't. But if you go back and look at the stats, and I think even Chin Coleman or Chuck Martin did say it in a press conference, that 60% of his attempts with us have been the three. So that's not how he is as a scorer.
Right.
He wasn't averaging 18. He was taking more twos at FAU than threes. And so now with Boogie Flan not being in the lineup, he's had an opportunity to score in different ways. I think it's much more comfortable for him, and you're only going to see him getting better and better. And to be fair, you're talking about he scares me every time he dribbles. He only had 1 turnover in that game against Kentucky, right?
He mentioned that.
He did? Okay.
The question was too long, so I had to take it
Oh,
out.
okay. He did mention he only had 1 turnover. Okay, I wanted to mention that as well. But I think you're going to see him getting better and better. We could go into, all the theories on why that is, but I think you will. Hop Hog says they just lost their Super Bowl, the game they had been laying in wait all year, the we told you so game. I have not laughed so much watching our Hogs in years. I'm going to enjoy this one for a long time.
Well, it's that Super Bowl comment. Now, you interviewed a student before the game, and he said pretty much that. He didn't say Super Bowl, but I think
he said, I'll quote him, because he sat there and told me, I said, how big is this matchup? Because I was curious to know from the student's perspective how big this game was. He said, this is the biggest game of the season. Some other student chimed in and said, this might be the biggest game of the decade. And he goes, yeah, maybe the biggest game of the decade. I don't know if I'd go that far and call it that, but.
And Jacob, who was with you, said that immediately some Kentucky fans started going, you're a little bit over the top there.
Well, they did in the comments, right? There was a lot of people in the comment section going, hey, hold on, slow down here.
But the point is, this was the part that I just couldn't figure out. I mean, are you serious? The biggest game of the season? Against the 15th place team in the SEC? That's no way that's true.
I don't agree with it, but that just shows you the storyline.
And I think this is why.
Storyline.
I think this is why these fans are laughing and enjoying that. They're going, what was wrong with those people? If you think about it, some of these people paid $600, something, $800.
There was the top seats. Jacob and I looked because we were wondering if you could even get some. The very top, $250, $300.
Yeah.
The very top.
So they paid a lot of money for, I guess, because they were mad and wanted to be there. Now let's go beyond that, and let's talk about Kentucky Sports Radio.
Oh, okay.
Matt Jones. He's gotten after me before.
He has,
when this guy six these Kentucky fans on you, your Twitter account's just going to get bombed for about 3 weeks.
Mine is. Mine is.
Yeah. So he was fanning the flames while this was going on, but I noticed when it was over and he was commenting, he laid it all off on Pope. Well, Mark Pope has some serious questions to answer. If I were Mark Pope, I'd say, you do.
Yeah, you have some serious
because you
questions
have as much to do with this as I do. But anyway, they've got this content creator for Kentucky Sports Radio, and his name is Mario Maitland.
Okay. I saw him. Yeah,
this is how the insanity gets even more. You remember that you didn't see this because you weren't watching on TV, but Cal goes off the court and immediately Alyssa Lang or whatever her name is.
Yeah, Alyssa Lang, yeah.
From the SEC Network. She's talking to him, and it's a very normal interview. And you think it's all normal. She's got a directional mic, which means the sound only carries a few feet away from the mic because it's designed to drown out all the noise. So it looks like a perfectly normal interview. And then Razorback players start going by in the background, and you see Billy Richmond doing something. You don't hear it.
No, you don't hear what he says.
But Cal turns around and says, hey, Billy, don't do that.
He yells at him and goes, Billy,
Yeah.
stop, you know.
And so I'm thinking, well, what was that? Was that like Arkansas players being jerks?
Yeah.
So this guy creates a video, and the lead on it is Arkansas players took shots against Kentucky fans.
Oh, my gosh.
That was the lead for this thing, and then he posts the video. And the video proceeds to show the opposite of that. It shows me something I never saw sitting home on TV, because now you're up above all this, and you see Cal way down below doing this same interview, but now you can hear all this. Hey, go home. You're a jerk. I hope you enjoyed the one win you have. You won't win another game. You're worthless. So now I realize he's sitting there doing this interview with Alyssa Lang while these guys are screaming this stuff at him.
Heckling him.
Heckling him, and he's not even responding. So the players happened to walk by, and apparently one of them hollered, they were continuing to holler at Cal, and another one hollered at Jonas Adu.
Yeah, he said, go back to Tennessee.
Yeah.
That's what he said, go back to Tennessee.
And that's when Billy Richmond looks up and says, how about you go home?
Right. Something about go home, right? Go home.
The game's over. Go home.
Right, go home.
You don't have to stick around
and
here.
Carter Knox waved. He was like, bye.
So this is just interesting, the way they do these things. And Kentucky Sports Radio, they're media, but are they media?
When I was at the game, I was very confused about this because I thought they were just media members, right? On social media, you would know nothing different. But then I ran into 3 of them, and they're wearing Kentucky gear. They're wearing, like, the logos of Kentucky, and you're going, that's not what media members do. And if you know this, you know that we wear our Pig Trail Nation gear. We don't wear Arkansas gear to the game.
I got the colors on a lot of times, but it doesn't say Arkansas on here anymore.
No, it says Pig Trail Nation. We don't ever wear to the games Razorback gear or Razorback anything. I was shocked to see that. I went over to Jacob and I said, Jacob, are they media members? He goes, honestly, I think how they started it was because they were fans. And they were fans starting a network. And so to me, I was going, okay, that makes more sense. So they're Kentucky homers all the way. All the way.
Now let's go to this Jeff Goodman guy.
Oh, gosh, we're going to go take shots at Jeff Goodman. Okay.
Well, no, we talked last week about his podcast. He's one of 3 guys on this podcast. And when I go on Google, and because I don't know him from squat, because I don't care about the national picture, I cover Arkansas in the SEC. And all I read is how smart he is, how so many people follow him, and he's just so good. I'm going, okay. But then last week, if you remember, he took all these shots at Cal, which he has every right to do. I don't have a problem with that. The problem started when he was talking about game has passed Cal by, and then he started talking about Nellie Davis, and he's not handling him right because he's not letting him play, and he's playing other people in front of him. And I'm going, are you a stooge? Do you not understand he's been hurt?
He didn't mention one thing
Didn't
about
say
any
one thing
injuries.
about that, and didn't mention that Cal put him in for like 30 minutes against, I think it was Ole Miss at home, and he didn't score a point. You can't leave a guy out there if he's not scoring. So he didn't have any credibility with me when he made that comment, and clearly was unaware of what happened. But still, this guy he's making his point, but then it's not enough. He brings up this anonymous SEC coach that's going to back up
Multiple.
everything.
They were another
it started
SEC
with one,
coach.
and then it moved to more than one.
Yeah.
And so these SEC coaches are agreeing with him. They're saying, yeah, the game has passed Cal by. None of us are afraid of him anymore.
He's archaic.
None of us are worried about him anymore. And I'm thinking, you cowards, if you really exist, and Goodman is not making this up, you're cowards. Because you're sitting there taking shots at a guy that's in the same profession you are, and you're not man enough to own up to it. So I'm not listening to this, and I have no use for him, Goodman, because if he can't get them to go on the record, as far as I'm concerned, it was never said.
Yeah.
Because he can't get them to back it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so now he's on a podcast, and I didn't see this until yesterday, it was a replay, a podcast as the game is ending. And they come on and they start saying, we're going to talk a lot about North Carolina just getting owned by Duke. It's terrible. And they proceeded to rip them for 20 minutes. But he said, later on, we're gonna get into this, what looks like a budding upset. And then they came back and about the third segment said, it's happened. Arkansas has beaten Kentucky. And Goodman's sitting over there looking like somebody just stepped on his head. So they all the other two complimented Arkansas, and then they said to him, what do you think about this? And he very quietly goes over and puts on a hog hat. And I'm thinking, he's going to own up to it. No.
Oh my gosh.
The guy said, well, you can't just put the hat on. You got to do the woo pig sue. And he goes, no, I hate that. That stinks. That's the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. So he takes the hat off and he proceeds to talk about why Arkansas won. And what did he say? Well, they're playing Nellie Davis now.
Oh my goodness.
Well, of course they're playing Nellie Davis. Hey, wake up. Boogie Fland is hurt. They have to play him. It wasn't because of what you said. So then he does this. He says, well, I predicted that if Arkansas lost, Cal would run out of the arena as fast as possible. And he said, right now, I'm telling you, he's in there in a press conference, and that press conference is going to be all about himself. He's going to be talking about himself and what he did. And what did he actually say in the press conference? Very short statement about that game. He said, we played a little better than they did today. We won the game. It's all about one game. They're still a really good team. They've got a really, really good coach. They'll be fine. We've got work to do. If you make anything out of this game beyond today, there's something wrong with you. He downplayed the whole thing, didn't say anything about himself. And I'm thinking, Goodman, what the heck is wrong with you? You're making these stupid, wild accusations that are absolutely incorrect.
I actually felt like he gave a lot of credit to the players too, because he turned
did.
around and said, when they asked him about, you met with players this week to talk about this game and what it meant, he says, yeah, I met with them, but you know what they said? They said, Coach, we're worried about you. And I was like, that just shows you.
Well,
he was like,
sure.
This is the team that I have, that they're over here. I'm thinking about them, and they're thinking about me.
I still say Arkansas fans say they don't feel comfortable with Cal. They don't think he belongs. They've heard he has a big ego, and I'm going, I don't know what you've heard. I haven't been around a coach in all the years that I've covered this team that I felt more comfortable around with him at press conferences. The only complaint against him, honestly, with media is he tends to cut the press conferences off short.
Well, the funny thing about that is, Jeff Goodman wants to say he ran out of there and everything. Mike Kaywood, who is the basketball sports information director, turned to the media and said, last question, right? And someone asked their question, and Cal, after that, he could have got up and left because he said, last question. Cal said, a few more because I'd got to go meet with my team. He actually extended the press conference.
I've seen no evidence of an ego. Show me something he said that sounded egotistical. I haven't heard it. He's about the most non-controversial coach in any sport I've ever been around covering him so far. It's still in the first year, but I don't get where all these people are coming from. So, yeah, all this stuff was weird. The Goodman and the Matt Jones and all these fans suddenly turned Mark Pope as terrible now.
Oh, gosh. And, we got more about Kentucky, so I don't want to harp on it too much. But Hog 1221 says, from what I've read, Kentucky fans claim it was our Super Bowl, trying to downplay it and then explain away the loss. If it wasn't a big game Super Bowl to them, then why did students camp out 24 hours in advance to get in?
Well, this is a very common practice from people that kind of throw this shade on other people, because they were the ones that made it like the Super Bowl. But what they're doing now is turning that around and saying, well, this was a Super Bowl to Arkansas. No, it wasn't. It absolutely was not.
Arkansas walked in there going, we know that we're the underdogs. We know that if we walk away and we lose, that was expected.
Yeah, they wanted to win the game, and it was big, but won the Super Bowl. And if you're talking about Arkansas fans, they didn't want to see this game. They wanted it to go away. Yeah. Because they all thought it was going to be an embarrassment.
Newsflash for you guys. I didn't see many Arkansas fans there. I was going around and going, okay, a little bit of maybe one red there, one red there. Yeah. I posted a Hog fan because I was like, hey, a Hog fan is here.
So that's very common. We're the ones that treated it like the Super Bowl, but we're going to say you did it.
I will also say, go back to the Kentucky media members and what they said. There were people lined up at the tunnel, at the opposing team tunnel. The Kentucky team was warming up on the court. Jackson Robinson had to turn to the media and go, get off the court, get off the court. But they weren't looking at Kentucky. They didn't care that they were warming up behind them. They wanted to see Cal. They wanted to see that.
It's just an obsession. It's
every
idiotic.
phone came out when he came in. They didn't care about their team. Their team. They cared to see what Coach Cal was doing.
And the whole thing backfired on them.
It did.
I wonder if it's ever going to register on them, and they would admit it.
Nope. No, you're never going to get that, Mike. Wishful thinking there, but we're dealing with Kentucky fans here. WFI Hog fan wants to know, do you compare beating Kentucky in basketball to beating Texas in football? Whoa.
I don't, because they're two completely different things. The whole thing about Texas, to be honest with you, in the football rivalry, it was always way more Arkansas than Texas. Texas looked at OU as their big rival. A&M was their big rival. If Arkansas was good, yeah, it was a big game. They wanted to win it. But they've never had the kind of just outright, ooh, we don't like you, that Arkansas fans have to them. So that's that rivalry, that football rivalry. The thing with Kentucky didn't even start until Nolan's first year, which was '92, and he went up there and beat them in Rupp. And they weren't used to that because they had dominated the SEC, and now here's this new team that came in and beat them, and I think it made them mad.
Yeah.
And I think they've been mad ever since. And Arkansas hadn't won all of those games. They've lost some of them too, but they've had a decent record against Kentucky. And I think Razorback fans right now it may change after this nutty incident, I don't know. But I think Razorback fans toward Kentucky was, if they're good, yeah, we want to beat them. But there's other teams. Remember, they loved beating Auburn a few years ago when they went crazy at Bud Walton. They enjoyed that year that you had the dunk to end the game, you know, the rebound dunk. But it's not the same thing. It's not like when you here's the difference. Anytime they've beaten Kentucky here, I promise you, you didn't have Dixon Street from Collier's Drug all the way down to about where we are, which is across the railroad track. You didn't have that street filled with people until 2 a.m. I saw them beat Texas one time in football, and that's what I saw because I lived in a house that was above Dixon Street. And I heard this noise, and I went out on the deck, and I'm standing there just dumbfounded. The street looked like a snake. It was moving.
Yeah.
I'm going, what is that? And then I realized it was people, full of people. There were no empty spaces in the street for 8-10 blocks up the hill. And I've never seen that. You've never had a situation where they beat Kentucky and they run in and steal the backboard and the rim support and all that and roll it out to Dixon Street and nail it onto the sidewalk. Yeah. But they did that in '99 when they beat, well, that was Tennessee, but they beat Tennessee. They nailed it they duct taped it to the wall of one of these businesses down the street. So it's not the same thing. They've never done that in basketball.
Yeah, and it's kind of comparing a little bit of apples to oranges there. I mean, yes, it's just when you think of Arkansas, Texas, like you said, whether or not if you're a Texas fan listening and you're going, I don't really care about Arkansas, that's fine. But it's still a rivalry that you think about when you go through and you go, yes, that's a rivalry.
It is. You don't have the hate for Tennessee right now that you did back when Sterner was there, for instance.
Right.
So things change from time to time. I think right now, at least up until this game, I wouldn't think Razorback fans were particularly mad at Kentucky. They'd won 3 of the last 4 or something like that, 5 of 7 or something crazy. So I didn't get the impression that at this point in time there was a lot of anger toward them.
Yeah.
Now it may change.
Right. Now it's blooming into something. And
it could be that way for a while. I don't know. But it's not Texas in football.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even think this game coming up with Texas in basketball is going to be like the rivalry in football. It's just not the same thing.
No, and football rivalries are different even than, and then you could go through in baseball rivalries, right? It's different even there. And so it's like you can go through every sport and identify, okay, these are our rivals here, or these are our rivals there.
Remember how nutty Kentucky baseball fans got last year? It was the first time they'd ever
Well, it's the first time they've had success, Mike. They were like.
And they went completely bonkers.
Psychos is what they want. I mean, it's just they do not know how to handle success. in sports that they don't have success in. So I'm sorry. That's how I feel. S. Giles says the win in Rupp was awesome, but now we know what they can do. There will be new pressure to back it up. Do you think they can still make the NCAA tournament?
I'm going to pass this on to you, and for this
Oh,
reason.
okay.
I've already admitted many times I am the world's worst at making predictions. I thought Arkansas would lose by 15, 18.
I did too, though.
I get stuff wrong all the time when people force me into a prediction. I'm not ashamed of that because the fact of the matter is athletics is so unpredictable, which is what I like about it. So you can sit here and say, I got this right, whoever you are, when you predict something. You know what happens? Nobody ever goes back and looks at another one of their predictions and sees if they have a history of being right, as opposed to just being right on this one big thing. Because when you raise your hand and say, I was right about that, you're nowhere around when you make a prediction.
You don't raise your hand and says, I was wrong about that.
Yeah, so I don't know. What do you think? Are they going to make the tournament?
Oof, that's a loaded question there. I think a lot of things have to happen, right? You can't just take it based on, because here's the thing. I said that about the Georgia game. After the Georgia game, I sat there and said, okay, this is a good way to start the momentum. You've broken the losing streak. That is hard to do when you're in a mindset of, oh, we're losers, we're terrible, yada, yada, yada. The fan base is saying those things too. It's hard to break out that mindset. They won a game. I was like, here we go. It's the dominoes are going to fall. Well, it didn't, right? They lost to Oklahoma, which I went, Here we go. Here it happens. So here's what I'll say to this question. Do I think they can still make the NCAA tournament? I see a path. But that depends. What Arkansas team do we see show up Wednesday against Texas? Can they string some wins together?
A lot of these guys are getting better, but here's who has to get better. Jonas Adu.
Absolutely.
Big Z is doing a lot of things. He's a terrible defender in the paint because they just back him down, bump him, and then turn around and just put it up.
Yep.
You need Jonas Adu out there. And I was on the radio with Matt Jones, the football Matt Jones, earlier today, and he made the point, and I think he's right. He thinks Adu is out of position too much.
Okay.
He's too far away when stuff happes where they need him to block a shot.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
I think he's
I
too
can
far
agree with
away
that.
sometimes when they need to do an assist to him and have him out of dunk. He's not where he needs to be. And that's a huge deal. If they can get him playing better and they can get Brazil more consistent, their bigs need to do a better job. They need to be more of a factor.
Absolutely.
And not just one of them.
Absolutely. And look, we can go back to the net rankings, right? They jumped up quite a bit in the net rankings. Arkansas, what they're at, 40, something like that. I'm like, now I'm trying to think about it, where they're at. But they jumped a bit in their net rankings to where now you're like, okay, if they can keep doing this, if they can keep picking up wins, they do have a chance of making the tournament. The question is, what are we going to see Wednesday?
Yep.
When you take away the storyline of Coach Cal's return to Rupp, and you have all these players that are going, they're booing us, right? Listen, I told people, I said, go show up to Austin on Wednesday night and go boo Coach Cal. Okay, see if you can get them to recreate that magic that they had. We'll see what happens. Still remains to be seen for me. If they'll make the NCAA tournament or not. Hog Redneck asked, could you talk about what Calipari said after the game about Coach Pope? Hog Redneck asked, could you talk about what Calipari said after the game about Coach Pope? I thought he showed a lot of class, but there are no class fans dumped all over it.
Okay, we've got the quote, so let's pop it up.
Okay.
And he said, Mark Pope is doing a great job. Not a good job, a great job. Today, we kind of got them today. Just move on. Next game. This is one game, and if anybody takes it as more than that, you're crazy. It's one game. Again, this is about as low-key as you can get. Now, what the Kentucky fans were saying was he was really sticking it to us with that. He didn't mean that. Yes, he did mean that, because that's what a coach says to his team when he doesn't want them to just start getting the big head and getting ahead of themselves. He's already saying to his players, you did a good job, but it's one game. You have to do it again. And he's saying that to Kentucky fans too. You lost one game. It's not the end.
Yeah.
I think Cal still has feelings for that program because he can't have been there all those years and not care about them. I don't think he likes beating them. It's like me and Texas Tech. Yeah, I cover the Razorbacks. I've lived here for 40 years. If it push comes to shove, I want Arkansas to beat Texas Tech. But I don't want them to play, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of what he feels.
I disagree there. I disagree.
I don't think he gets a big charge out of beating Kentucky. I don't. I think he's happy that he came out on top. But if you would see little clues, if it was...
Can I tell you the little clues I saw?
All right.
I was watching him during that game. And when he was walking up and down the bench, right? And he one time looked over to us down there, and he gave a little he was like smiling, and he had this little smirk on his face. And I think that's his way of showing. Cameras may not have caught it. I caught that moment, and the Arkansas photographer turned to me and went, "He is loving this."
That's fine.
And I said, "I believe you.
I think when you're at a place for 15 years and you had the kind of success he had, you don't just suddenly want him to lose.
You don't, but you want to go back there and prove. He knows what they're saying about him. He knows what those fans are saying.
He didn't play it up.
Well, he listened to what Andrea Carter said on College Game Day, I'm sure, and said, when you show up to the club, you don't want to show up with a downgrade.
So you believe, like with the Kentucky fans, when he said this stuff, that he was really just making it up.
No, I don't believe so, because I think you're going to be generally nice to...
He took himself out of the mix. Yeah, he said it's not a big deal.
Yeah, but how many times, I've grown up with a college basketball coach, and how many times has my dad gotten interviews and gave a lot of credit to the opposing coach and talked really nice about them, and behind closed doors...
He's going,
No, behind closed doors, he's gone, "Man, I don't like that guy, man. I'm not saying he doesn't like Mark Pope. I'm not saying he doesn't like anybody of the SEC coaches. I'm just saying, you're gonna put on a show.
There's gonna come a time when he's retired, and he's not gonna have any bad feelings about Kentucky. And what he feels about Arkansas, I don't know. He's got to win here.
I'm not saying he has all the bad feelings. I think he felt really good to get that win on Saturday.
Well, if he did, he should, because it helps his team.
Absolutely, but what I'm saying is he enjoyed. You can't just say he didn't. Oh, he didn't want to go and beat them. He had some feelings
he's
there.
Thinking, I beat Kentucky. They're jerks.
I would disagree with you with the smirk he had when he was walking up and down that bench. I think he had a smirk on, and that smirk showed me he was excited to win that game. He wanted to win that game a whole lot. Red Dog Razorback says the letter that went out on basketball season tickets is just a form of age discrimination. I'm hearing a lot of contributors are not going to pledge if they don't know where their seats are going to be. How many people are on the wait list for basketball tickets? Has anyone thought about if this change doesn't work? Is it just like the Super Bowl tickets, $8,000, or stay home and watch it on TV?
I can see where you might think it was age discrimination, because the people that are going to have to make a decision on whether to keep the seats they've already had are people that have had those seats for 25 years or more. And that makes you old unless you were 10 when you got season tickets. So a lot of those people are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're not intentionally trying to get rid of old fans. I think they'd rather keep them, and they'd rather have those people keep those seats. But this is what you can't make some fans understand. And this happened, it's already happened at Baum. They've already gone through this, and it was already explained, and it made perfect sense to me. What if I'd been buying potato chips? I'm a potato chip freak, and I've been going to Walmart and buying potato chips for 30 years. Okay. And what if 30 years ago, the price of a big bag of potato chips, not a little one, a big one, was like 49 cents, 30 years ago?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and what if they kept it at that price for all these years? And one day somebody at Walmart said, "Hey, we've got to raise the price on that. It's nowhere near the market value right now. Over there at this grocery store, they're charging $5.50 for that." And you go, "Okay, well, let's make it $4.50. That's what's happening here. When they looked at Baum, and I'm telling you, Hunter Yurachek had some people come in here from the outside, and they told him, they looked and they went, "Wait a minute. These seats are way underpriced." And so they looked at it and they went, if you look around the SEC and what they're charging at LSU, what they're charging at Ole Miss, what they're charging at Mississippi State, our tickets are way too inexpensive. So they said, "Look, I'm sorry, but it's got to go up," and it had to go up a lot, because they were paying, in some cases, what they paid when they first bought the tickets years ago. And so what did that do? It made some people mad. But
A lot of people
But
mad.
they had enough people that wanted those seats, that had money, that said, I'll pay. And so those people moved into those seats. Did they lose something? Absolutely. The first thing we saw happen is when you got to some of these weekend games, if it was Missouri that came in here instead of LSU, there'd be all kinds of empty seats behind home plate. That's what happened as a result.
Yeah, because even corporations bought up those tickets,
That's
and
right.
then they may have given them out, to
That's
fair
right.
weather fans.
Okay, and that's bad.
Yes.
But what's the solution? Because they have to raise money just like any of these other SEC schools, and especially now with revenue sharing. In the 2025-26 academic year for athletics, Hunter Yurachek has to come up with $25 million that's not in the budget this year. Yeah. That's just like somebody coming up.
But even more than that, to be fair, even more than $25 million, right? Because are you putting in that the extra scholarships as well?
It's 22 for the for the revenue sharing and about $3 million for the extra scholarships.
For the extra scholarships, okay.
So it's about $25 million.
Okay.
So that's like me coming to you and saying, I don't know what your annual budget is for how you spend money, but we're adding this to that, and you're going, whoa! I gotta come up with some more money.
Yeah.
And so you can get mad at him all you want, but do you want to win or do you want to fall behind? Because and you can get mad and say it's all about money anymore in college athletics.
Well, it is.
Well, revenue sharing is going to solve part of that. It's going to really reduce the amount of money they're paying for athletes, but all of them are going to get a chunk of it. It's going to be more fair, and it's not going to be nutty, and you're not going to have linemen mad because the quarterback makes $6 million and they get 30,000 or something. It's going to be way more balanced. So they're trying to make this work. But if you're a fan that gets mad about this and says, I don't care, they've dumped on me, well then, you just stay home and watch it on TV, because that's all you can do if you're the AD.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to see what really, really happens. Will they make this money and be fine? Because if they don't, then there may be another change coming.
I've been told that they feel like they have enough people that have already told them, if somebody gives up this seat, we'll take them right away.
Yeah,
we'll pay the high amount.
But I can also see where fans are upset about it, because
sure.
it also wasn't great timing when this email went out.
Good. The biggest problem, the only way in which I will criticize Hunter Yurachek is what I've said all along. He doesn't have enough Arkansas people on his staff.
Right.
He doesn't have enough Arkansas people at the foundation. Anywhere where you interact with fans and you're going to have to make them mad with some bad news, you need somebody. You need somebody that can sell ice cubes to Eskimos, and we got some of those around here, and he could use them, because they're Arkansas people, and they're people these fans know, and they trust them. And if they tell you, look, this has to happen, then you're going to be a lot more likely to believe it than some guy you don't even know telling you that.
I agree with you completely. The other thing I wonder is just how did they have to do it so much, and did they have to do it like they did? Because I just see where fans are losing out, because if you were a family of 5, right, you could get 5 season tickets and pay this amount of money. Some of them can't pay the jump that they've asked them to pay of going to $10,000. It's like, okay, well, if I keep paying $2,000 or whatever I would be able to take my whole family. Now I'm not only able to get 2 season tickets with what I was paying. And I think that's going to hurt the younger generation of fans.
Maybe, we'll see.
You raise them young, right? So many people have told me why I became a Razorback fan was because I got to go to the games as a young kid, and my dad always took me to those games, and he had season tickets. And
you don't have to tell me about the Frank Boyle days.
I know.
It was the customer is always right with the fans.
Yeah.
But somehow that's gone out the window. But it's not just Jeff Long and Hunter Yurachek that have done that. There are ADs all over the country, all over the conference that have done that.
I know. Trust me, I know. I mean, you can look up and down and see the decisions. I mean, there's some Tennessee fans that weren't okay with the fee they're going to add on the tickets. Yep. Which I said to Razorback fans, would you be okay with him adding a fee on your tickets as a talent fee and doing that instead? Listen, I don't know. They've got to make the money up somehow. I just hate it's just going to affect some things, and I hate that it's going to affect the young, bringing your kids to games and things like that. Pig's Feet wants to know, what is your opinion on junior college and NCAA Division II and 3 years not counting toward Division I eligibility?
I like it, just like I like this proposal to give Division I athletes a straight 5-year eligibility, no red shirting.
Right, just
you
5
can play
years.
for 5 years, and here's why I like it. We got all these guys, all these athletes that come in and they're one and done, or they're two and done, or in football they're 3 years and done. You're always turning this over with your better athletes. But the better teams, I'm telling you, have a way of taking some people that are pretty good, and they bring them in, and maybe they have to go to junior college for a couple of years, and then they get to this level. And maybe they're not ready as in their first year at this level, but then the second year and the third year and the fourth year. If you go through this junior college thing, you could be here, that doesn't count, so you could have 5 years. I don't know if they'll mix that.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you have at least 5 years, you may have year 4 and year 5 where you've got some leaders on that team that are mature, and they have developed where they're just as good as some of these 5-star guys that are coming in as freshmen and sophomores. So the longer you can get some of these average athletes to stay and develop, I think it's better for your team. So I'm all for this.
Yeah, and I also like what you mentioned. I mean, let the JUCOs and the Division IIIs and Division II programs give you free development.
They develop your guys.
Right. So when they get to your level, the D1 level, they're pretty talented. They're pretty good. They've gotten out some of those
We got some
kinks.
junior college guys coming in with this next football team. We'll see if they have an impact.
Exactly. Marty Bird's Proxy asked, can you give a preview of the upcoming softball team and their season? And what has been the biggest reason for their success?
Okay, I turn this totally over to you because you are a part of the preseason softball special.
Thank you, Mike.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
not.
Okay.
So you've got it.
That's completely fine. We're running out of time on the show, and I know we have a few more questions to get to, but I'm going to answer this kind of briefly of what you should know about this year's softball team. Marty Bird's Proxy asked a big thing, what is the biggest reason for their success and Courtney Deifel's success? It's the roster, and she's no different this year. She's put together a great team, and I'm not trying to hype you up too much, but look, there's a reason why so many people were talking about this freshman class and what she has brought in this upcoming season. That class of 2024, Mike, was ranked by Softball America the number 4 class in the nation. And you can see why. Ella McDowell is a name that you might have heard if you followed softball a lot in the offseason. It's because she's the number 3 overall player in that class, the number 1 infielder in the class of 2024, and she played for the under-18 national team as well. Right. So she's really good. Expect to hear her name a lot. You go up and down some of their returners, Bree Ellis, Reagan Johnson, Reagan Kramer. You know, something weird about this team is you're not going to have a Hannah Gamble. And that's super weird to think about. I just can't fathom. She's been on this team so long that they don't have her this year. I'm wondering who's going to step up as that leader. Yeah. I like Bree Ellis. She's really vocal. Reagan Johnson, I did a segment with her that's in our softball special, so go watch that. She's wanting to take on more of a leadership role on this team. You look at the pitching staff, okay? Well, they had a 2.18 ERA last year, which was the 4th best in the SEC. They bring back Robin Herron, who was amazing for them last year, and Reese Berline as well. What's going to be interesting is to see those freshmen I talked about. The class is really good. What can they do for this team now? It can't just be those 2 in the circle. Yeah. They've got to have some help from those freshmen. But I will say, out of those freshmen, we got to see a little bit of Cam Harrison in the circle in the fall ball, in some of those fall ball games. And I was impressed because I think it was Seminole State College. She came in, pitched 2 innings, and struck out 6. Mm-hmm. And so I went, Okay, all right, let's go, freshman. I also want to mention Kaylee Wyckoff, transfer from Texas Tech, okay? There's been a lot of talk about this girl, and for good reason, because with Texas Tech, in 2023, she was the Big 12 Freshman of the Year. Last year, she made the Big 12, all Big 12 team on the first team. She bats 407. She batted 407 for them, which led the team last year. 12 doubles, 7 home runs, and a career-high 35 RBI. She's going to be a huge piece of this team. They were over the moon when they got her to come in, so she supplements that talent. Now, I'll also mention this. Italia Rijo, who, as a freshman, you might remember her, she started, I think, pretty much all the games at shortstop, I want to say. But Alyssa's, saying yes to me. So, yeah, started all those games at shortstop. Really good for them there. What happened last year with her? We thought, man, she's going to be so good her sophomore season. gets injured. And so didn't play a whole lot of that year. I think only 9 games is what she played in last year. She's healthy. She's back. She's ready to go. Courtney Deifel has a very dangerous squad this year. And I know the SEC is tough, even with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma into the league this year. But, man, this team, I really like what she's put together. So there's a little preview. But, hey, if you want more softball, go watch our preseason softball special airing on Tuesday night on KNWA and KARK. Okay, Parallax Pig asks, with the money grab now wide open between networks, colleges, and athletes, how soon will football games be an add-on charge to your cable/streaming service? I bet it happens in 5 years or less.
A lot quicker than that. It's already been going on for a while.
It's already happened.
Because what happens is, if you're a local station like we are, network charges us money to carry their programming. And that's why periodically, when you have local stations, you've seen these things where a cable company says, oh, this channel is no longer available. But that's because they're in negotiations. And what the local station is saying is the network charged us more money, so we got to charge you more money. And so once they agree, and they agree to give us more money, then guess what happens? They pass it along to the consumer.
Correct.
So you're already getting this. They just don't call it an add-on charge. It's just a new charge.
Or they do call it an add-on charge. I'm looking at you, YouTube TV. I pay extra money to get every NFL game, NFL Sunday Ticket.
Or ESPN3.
Or ESPN Plus. Many of you pay the $11 a month to get all of the other games that ESPN streams.
So it's already going on.
It's already happening. Hot Dogger wants to know, did you ever meet Jerry Jones? I'm a Cowboys fan and hope the new coach can get them going again. Whew, with the Hogs' sad seasons in football and basketball, I guess it's a curse to root for Dallas too.
I'm sure sometime in the distant past, after he bought the Cowboys, there was some time when I interviewed him and I probably said, hey,
Mike Irwin.
Here's my name, and I knew his name. But nobody ever said, Mike, meet Jerry. That never happened. I do remember the one time I was around him a lot was at a coaches media golf tournament at Paradise Valley Golf Course here in Fayetteville. And he was in the clubhouse and he was next to the Coke machine along with Frank. And they just did this impromptu press conference because everybody that was out there to cover the tournament just came in with their cameras. And I'm standing there next to Jerry and I'm watching him for about 30 minutes just talk. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I remember as I sat there and watched him, I went, this guy thinks a lot about himself.
Oh.
He's kind of got an ego. That was just my impression. However, you've got to say that this guy has given a lot to the U of A. This Jerry and Jean Jones Family Student Center, that's that computerized lab academic area combined with this the best cafeteria that the best food you could ever get as an athlete. Because they got nutritionists in there. If you've got to lose weight, you've got to gain weight, they put you on a certain diet that you do that.
Yeah, they have like specialty foods too. The track athletes were telling me they get sushi there, like handmade sushi
you
there.
You just walk in there and tell them, and they've got their own chefs that'll make that for you. So that's a tremendous recruiting tool. So I don't want to downplay him a lot, but here's the thing about this is why I like college athletics as opposed to the pros.
Okay.
And even with all this stuff about get rid of Hunter Yurachek, here's the thing that at the college level, if you're bad enough as an AD long enough, you're not winning hardly anything, and you're eventually going to get fired. The fans are going to go get rid of this guy, and they're going to get rid of this guy. You ain't getting rid of Jerry Jones. I don't care what happens to the Cowboys. He's going to stay there. And then when he's not there, it's going to be his kids, and they supported the guy they just hired for head coach. So you're stuck with that.
You're stuck with Jerry Jones. Sorry, Cowboys fans. Mike says you're stuck with him. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you. Actually, we won't see you next Monday to answer your questions. A little note for everybody out there. Mike's going to take some vacation time.
My mom turns 99 on the 8th of this month, so I'm going to be there.
There you go.
And then I'll be back the week after that.
So we will have Ask Mike, not next week, which is February 10th.
So you got 2 weeks to ask questions.
2 weeks, ask all the questions in 2 weeks, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks to answer those questions. And Mike, enjoy your time with your mom, okay?
I will.